Hey everyone, so I'm going to be going through how to get better at Kendama tournaments. If you're asking why I'm making this video and I haven't won a tournament, that is completely valid. If you are looking to get from 5th place to 1st place at NAKO, this video is probably not for you. If you are somebody who is looking to get into tournaments or who is overcome by nervousness and can't seem to be himself or herself in a tournament, this video is for you. And regardless, I'm bringing in Liam Rauter, who actually won Battle of the Border 2 days ago, to go through some of his tips and tricks. But what we're going through is stuff that you probably kind of already know. I'm just going to be explaining it to you in a much different way to help you out. One reason is that if you place at a Kendama tournament, especially a major Kendama tournament, it's just going to heighten your chances to get sponsored if you want to get sponsored for a team. And at least it's going to get you out there in the community. Secondly, it's going to improve your Kendama ability by a ton. Competing in Kendama is such a different way of playing than you're probably used to. So you're just going to you're going to be a more well-rounded player. And lastly, improving in Kendama competition is one step more towards mastering your mind. Kendama competitions are usually so overwhelming for people. And so mastering performance and handling pressure and handling the nervousness you feel are life skills that you'll use forever. And keep in mind, this video, I'm just going to be talking about the open format. So if you want to get better at an open format style Kendama competition, there are 2 things that you need to do. One is the physical game. You need to increase the hit rate of a trick as close as you can get to 100%. And 2 is the mental game. You need to compete at a level that's the same or better than your usual ability. So let's dive into 1. You need to increase the hit rate of a trick as close as you can get to 100%. So the hit rate or success rate is the number of times you hit the trick divided by the number of times you attempted the trick. So let's say you try airplane 100 times. If you hit it all 100 times, your hit rate is 100%. And if you hit it 75 out of 100 times, your hit rate is 75%. The way that you increase your hit rate is pretty obvious. You practice the trick over and over again. And the more you practice, the more you progress and your hit rate goes up. I recommend tracking hit rates out of 50 or 100 attempts, because that's going to give you the most accurate prediction of how well you can do the trick. So to give you an example, I calculated my hit rate back for NAKO 2019. This was a competition that I had a lot of time to prepare for. So this is my first competition that I went all out, and I did strategy. I practiced 2 hours a day. I wrote everything down. I just went all out. I ended up in 17th place. I was like 1 spike away from getting top 8, which still kills me to this day. But let's take a look. So you can see for 1 turn airplane 1.5 trade spike, the first trick on the list, I have some notes here of what I need to do. But as you can see here, I calculated my hit rate 3 times. So 300 attempts in total. I separated it by 100. So the first time I did 100 times, I ended at 33 out of 100. The second time, I landed at 44 times out of 100. And then the third time, I landed at 39 times out of 100. But you can see these numbers between the 3 columns are pretty similar. And that's because I just did them all in one day. I did 300 attempts a day. Also, the best way you track a hit rate is after you've learned the trick and you feel like you know it pretty well. As you track your hit rate, you'll definitely get better at the trick because you're practicing, but you don't want to learn the trick as you're doing this. And once you've figured out your hit rate, you can do a few things. The number will give you insight of how well you perform certain tricks compared to other tricks, which can be a great way to tell you what tricks you need to practice more. It can also be a great way to look at progression. So calculating the hit rate after you've learned it, practicing that trick for a few weeks, calculating again, you can see how much you've improved. When calculating your hit rate in regards to preparing for a Kendama tournament, it definitely has some shortcomings, because obviously the more you do the trick in one session, the higher chance you're going to land it because you're so used to it. At a competition, you might have to do a trick first try that you haven't done in a few minutes. But tracking hit rates is a great start to practicing tricks, checking out your progression, and understand what tricks you need to work on. And now, 2. You need to compete at a level that's the same or better than your usual ability. Let's put your Kendama ability on a scale. So 10 is the most honed you've ever felt, where everything was landing, tricks were going in slow motion, tricks were easy, you felt energized. It was just the best experience playing Kendama. 1 is the worst experience playing Kendama, where you feel like you can't land anything. Maybe at a competition you felt like this, but you just feel like a terrible Kendama player. In my opinion, I play day-to-day around a 7 or an 8. I've only played at a 10 a few times in my life, and the worst I've ever played was in a competition, and that's like a 3 or 4. My first competition, I've been playing for 2 years, and I get on stage and I just can't do even a lighthouse. My hands were shaking so much that the simplest tricks seemed impossible. So back to the point, you want to compete at a level that you're usually playing at. And this directly relates to the first point. If your hit rate is 70% for airplane, but you're playing at half your usual level, then your hit rate is going to be like 35%. And that's why these 2 points are equally important. If you can't perform at the usual level that you play at, then hit rates don't mean anything. But if you can perform at a usual level, but you haven't practiced the tricks, then you're going to miss stuff too. But notice in point 2, I also said better. And the reason I said that is when you're nervous, that's energy in your body. You can channel it negatively, like when you're nervous and be shaky and miss stuff, or you can channel that energy positively and be more honed and play at better ability. In my view, that's where I see Bonds and the Gallaghers and the top performers destroying the competition because they play better on stage than they normally would day to day. My last 2 competitions, Battle at the Border and NAKO, I think I finally progressed to be at like a 5 or 6. But every competition before that, I was at 2, 3, or 4. And honestly, that progression I'm really proud of. At Battle at the Border, I was hitting lots of tricks and I was matching tricks. I was able to perform like I normally would practice. Last year, I read a book. It's about performance under pressure, and it's called Performance Under Pressure. There were 2 major takeaways from this book that directly relates to Kendama competition. The first are 3 reasons of why you feel nervous. The first reason is that the outcome is important to you. So you want to land this trick because if you miss, you'll lose a point. And if you lose a point, you may lose the game. Number 2 is the outcome is uncertain. You don't know if you're going to hit the trick, and thinking about missing or just thinking about the fact that you don't know what's going to happen makes you nervous. And number 3, you feel you are responsible for and you are being judged on the outcome. If you're competing at Battle at the Border and you made it to the Sweets Twitch channel, you were playing in front of 600 people. So you get nervous because you're afraid to look bad in front of those people, and you are fully responsible for that outcome. It's really crazy how these 3 reasons directly relate to Kendama. And in fact, you can take one of these reasons out and you can easily see why you would be less nervous. For example, let's say the outcome wasn't important to you. You signed up for a tournament last minute. You don't care how you did. You're going to be less nervous because the outcome isn't important to you. Let's say you pull a trick and you're feeling good and it's the easiest trick of the list and you know you're going to hit it. The outcome is certain. You get less nervous. And lastly, let's say you're not being judged on the outcome. A good example of this is NAKO Freestyle of last year, where instead of going on stage to perform, players sent in their freestyle clip. I bet most players, at least myself, I didn't feel nervous at all because I knew that if I messed up in a clip, I could just scrap it. So I didn't feel like I was responsible for each individual clip. I just felt responsible for the clip that I sent in, and when that played on Twitch, I was nervous. The second major takeaway I want to share with you is how the book suggests you get through this. They say to use a coat of armor, COTE. So C is confidence, the degree of which you believe you can influence a specific outcome. They go through mental practices you can do to feel more confident, but getting those hit rates up will most definitely make you feel more confident. O is optimism, expecting the future to go well. T is tenacity, so hard work, perseverance, working towards a goal, grit. I would say this is more towards the mental side, where if you know you worked hard to not be nervous on stage and you feel good about that, you're less likely to be nervous. And then the E is enthusiasm, having positive thoughts, being in an energized state, maybe playing music before a round to get pumped up. Anyway, those are 2 of my main points of getting better at Kendama competitions. When it comes to specific practicing and routine, I wanted to bring in a pro. I brought in Liam Rauter, who beat Nick Gallagher 2 days ago to win Battle at the Border 2021. Liam was awesome to talk to. He was very open about his regimen and how he practices. He was open about past experience competing, and he's just a very humble guy. The full interview is on my YouTube, but the biggest takeaways for me from that interview were 1, the amount of practice he puts in for a competition. I guess let's just go into this Battle of the Border, what your current regimen is, and then I kind of want to see how you developed it. But like, comp's coming up, Battle of the Border. It was announced a little late this year, but what do you do? Like, when do you start?
So basically, once the list is out, I basically just start right then. I'll kind of just break down what I do in a nutshell. So basically the first couple days, I'm basically just familiarizing myself with the tricks. I'll basically just go down the list and just kind of like feel them out and kind of figure out like what kendama I'm going to use, because I want to be able to figure that out quickly so then I can be breaking it in and not feel the need to like change setups like in the middle of practicing, you know. I try and figure that out early on so I don't have to worry about that like later on. So I would say like the first like 3 days is just like getting used to the tricks and with the kendama that I'm going to be using. And then I would say like once like day 3 hits, I really start to like check my consistency on the tricks. So what I'll do is I'll literally go down the list and hit each trick 3 times in a row before I move on to the next one. And sometimes if I'm like struggling with one, I'll try and hit it a couple more times after that before moving on. So I'll do that. I would say like this time around, I did that for a solid like 2 weeks straight after the tricks were out. And then once it started getting a little bit closer to the competition, I kind of switched and I was checking myself mostly on like how many tries it takes to hit a trick like from the first try.
Gotcha.
And just figuring out which ones I needed to work on from there, which ones I would have to, you know, put more focus into. Because like some tricks you kind of have to like feel it out a couple times, like you'll miss a few times, but then you'll get into the rhythm of it. So I try and figure out like what my rhythm is for those tricks, so I don't have to like completely rethink it in my head. I can just pull it up and do it, you know?
Yeah. For 2, the way that he looks at the trick list, he doesn't ignore the tricks that are hard for him. He tackles them specifically. And 3, the fact that he was extremely nervous his first few competitions, and that's something that he went through and struggled with to get to where he is today, beating Nick Gallagher to win one of the biggest competitions of kendama. So when was your first comp?
My first competition was actually a battle at the border. I think it was the one at the very start, I want to say of 2015.
Okay.
It was one, I think it was the first year that Battle at the Border was held at Rocketown. It was in the small venue because it was still, you know, not a huge event yet, but like they had the smaller venue at the place that we were at, you know, last year, back when we were in person, but we're in the you know, the bigger venue, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the first one that I actually went to.
Okay. And then how'd you do?
Not well at all. I lost my first round. I'm pretty sure it was a 3-0 loss. Just because I got up there and everyone's looking at you, the nerves hit, and my brain just shut down and I did not know what to do. I practiced a ton, but like it doesn't matter. If you can't get past the nerves, you are not going to, I mean, it just doesn't work.
Interesting, man. So I think it's a relief to hear that you just won Battle at the Border 2021, beating the best player, Nick Gallagher. And your first comp, you were just overwhelmed by your nerves.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So thanks for watching, guys. This specific content is very near and dear to my heart. I love competition and I strive to be a better competitor. I hope this helps you with your competition. And I hope this opens up more of a dialogue and conversation that we can have about feelings of nervousness and pushing through that.